Good afternoon and welcome to this afternoon's demonstration of our health and safety software. So I want to thank you for giving up your precious time this afternoon to have a look at our software. We really do appreciate that. My name's Mark Brady. I'm one of the sales accountants for HBXL. I've been working with the company for the last 14 years. The company itself, we've been developing and selling this software to the industry for the last 21. So we have been around for quite some time. So for those that want to, for those that are actually familiar with the GoToMeeting software, we're obviously using to do the screen share today. I will have a bit of a Q&A at the session, so at the end of the session. There is a little kind of question panel, a little question box. You can fire questions to me as we go through, and obviously we'll have that kind of Q&A session just towards the end of today. Okay. So, bit of a PowerPoint for everyone. Just going to go through some slides. Just want to bring to everyone's attention, I guess, the legal obligations on site with the and how to kind of meet those legal obligations with our software. So some of the documents you need to make sure you produce to avoid fines by the HSE, fees, or even kind of worse, is the company health and safety policy. So obviously, if you haven't got a company health and safety policy, you need one. The Health and Safety at Work Act, obviously every employer by law with 5 or more employees must prepare an update as necessary. Obviously, risk assessments, management of health and safety at work regulation 1999. Every employer is required to carry out and especially record if 5 or more employees. So all your risk assessments need to be done. Cost assessments, so substances that are hazardous to health must be carried out as well. So again, these are all the documents that you'll find in the software. Accidents and incidents, so obviously anybody having accidents on site, any kind of incidents that do occur. Reporting of injuries, disease and dangerous occurrences regulations, RIDOR 2013. Reporting accidents and ill health is a legal requirement by any kind of company carrying out any kind of construction work. Pre-construction information, again, this needs to be under CDM regs. This needs to be a requirement. Information required by the designers, the contractors, obviously the principal designers and principal contractors. And construction phase management plan. So every project requires a document outlining how health and safety will be managed, no matter how small. So again, we'll go through the construction phase plan within the software and shows you what that gives you. So without further ado, we'll go into the software. So as I said, these are the kind of legal requirements by any kind of company, any kind of construction company within the actual industry. So what you guys are kind of seeing on screen here is pretty much your kind of home page. So when you open the software up, a couple of action buttons on the left-hand side, creating a new project, opening an existing one, although you can open them from this right-hand side here where it's got your kind of recent files. They can be opened there. For those that are either using or looking to use our Excavations Express software, so being a software company, we do have other various softwares as well, Excavations Express being one of them. So once the estimate's been done, you can actually import the estimate from your library of estimates and then import that particular job. Now that does save a lot of time because Health and Safety Xpert will then recognize what type of project you're actually doing, what the build phases you're more than likely to kind of cover, and then what it does, it produces all the risk assessments, cost assessments based on that particular project. Also help videos, we can kind of click on those and that will take you to the help video site within here under the kind of how-tos, and then all your health and safety videos are obviously kind of down here to kind of start the project, completing your policies. So there's a video on pretty much all the different kind of areas of the software. So two options really to kind of start the project, either kind of create it as a new project where you then just fill in the information, or certainly for those that are looking to kind of use the Estimator Express import, by clicking on that button, that will then kind of be link in with Estimator Express, and then you can actually import the job from Estimator Express. All right, so that's very, very similar. But what I'll do it as a new project today. Obviously, not everyone's looking at a Estimator Express. It might just be purely a health and safety inquiry. So if you do a brand new project, clicking that button, you're then met with the what type of project are you actually looking to do. So you do have a couple of options down here. If you're building apartments, refitting, building new ones, conservatories, extensions, houses, lofts, offices, down to roofing, plastering, and decorating. So it'll do some of the smaller works like renovation and alterations, all the way up to covering you for all the health and safety on building a new house or even an extension. So let's just take extension for as an example. We'll choose extension. Just click next down here. Now what the software is actually doing is actually assuming that we'll have to cover these build phases when you actually carry out the extension job. So obviously, external decoration, drains, commencement, cleaning, all the way down to kind of foundations and footings. These are all kind of ticked for you based on an extension project. If you were pulling this in from Estimator Express, it will pick these up automatically based on the ones you've actually estimated in the in Estimator Express. All right. So we'll click next. You can then kind of give it a project name. I'm just going to call this Mark Demo. You can call it whatever you like, really, with the regards to the project name. But what the software is now going to do is actually create a file on my C drive, or my hard drive. I've actually got it kind of looking at OneDrive. So obviously, if anybody else has got access to my OneDrive folder, they've got my login details, or we're kind of sharing a company-wide OneDrive. All those documents will then be uploaded into the OneDrive in the cloud, so you can access them as long as you've got access to that particular path. All right, and as you can see there, it'll create a project folder as well. So all we then do is just click finish. Let me just import one and just see if that helps. Right, should be creating a project here for me now. Right, so this is what it's actually done now. It's imported that job from Estimator Express. So these are the kind of job details here. Obviously, your own kind of logo can be changed by browsing, and you can upload your own logo here. The top under the project details, this kind of references the information. So again, you can pop in there a project name. You can overtype this as well if you want to, call it whatever you like. Same for the project reference. If you want to kind of call this health and safety #1, you can do. Obviously, if you're it probably looks like on the estimate, I don't actually have any kind of client's details awarded to this particular project. If it had done, those that would all be mapped into this kind of system here. Health and Safety Director. So what you can do here is on this little kind of icon here, we can browse for contacts. Within the software, we've actually got myself here assigned as a Health and Safety Director. Within the edit function, I can tell the software who this person is and what they're actually doing. All right. Again, if you want to put them as the Health and Safety Director, whatever you like in there, you can kind of change that if you need to. All right. Same for the principal designer, principal contractor. All this information can be added, or you can go into the contacts and actually add a new one, and then you can put a new person in there from within the software itself, and then again designate them in a particular category about what their role is within the actual project. The HSC, if you do click on the HSC button, the software already has these kind of preloaded. So being down here in Bristol, I'm going to click OK on the Bristol Health and Safety Advisory, and we've got their address details on this within the system. There are some useful links just below here. These are all hyperlinks. So if you want to kind of look at the HSC's homepage, click on there, and this will take you straight to the HSC's homepage on here. So if you want to have a look at how COVID affects the workplace, any kind of guidance on health and safety, asbestos, construction, RIDDOR, that will then kind of take you to this section. And again, any of these kind of the other hyperlinks will kind of take you to the health and safety in the construction industry. And the HSC is a very, very good website for information, guidance on making sure that you are completely compliant with kind of CDM Regs 2015. All right. Now, one thing the HSC also have been championing, and their kind of approach to health and safety or projects to cover you for kind of health and safety, is the HSG 65 document. Now, the HSG 65 document, what it essentially kind of covers is the Plan, Do, Check, Act approach. All right. So if anybody's ever come across this, the Plan, Do, Check, Act is how the health and safety executive would like all kind of building companies to approach their particular jobs. So it's all about at the planning stage, what documentation you're going to need. At the actual kind of do stage, so the carrying out of the actual work itself. The check stage, so checking things as you go, and obviously kind of acting on certain things as well. So what we've done is we've kind of made our own kind of document and how that comes together, the HSG 65, and how that affects the software and what you actually need. So we do have a document on this, and I'm just going to kind of scroll down here about the kind of Plan, Do, Check, Act approach. What this does, this kind of lays out, for example, on the kind of planning stage, what documentation you actually need. So company health and safety policy, CDM 2015 duty holders checklist, contractors' responsibilities for domestic clients. Obviously, around that kind of the policy and planning, pre-construction information, simple construction phase plan or the major construction phase plan. Obviously, your kind of fire plan, contractors questionnaire, and these are all the documents you actually find within the software. Obviously, the kind of do risk assessments obviously have to be kind of carried out. Cost assessments have to be carried out. Organization and implementing site induction registrars, Toolbox Talks, etc. These are all in here as well. So we actually have this particular document that highlights your kind of HSG 65 approach by using our software. So that's quite handy in the software. It's the top hyperlink. You can actually download that PDF and have a read of it. But the HSC's kind of guidance on the Plan, Do, Check, Act approach, that can be linked in here as well. So we've gone a little bit further, and there's a version of our software which is the Health and Safety Xpert Premium Edition, and it has this kind of additional kind of option on the very, very end under Views. But what this does, it actually allows you to kind of have a look at under a table view, and I'll show you this. This actually kind of states under the guidance of the HSG 65 what the overall kind of planning stage is, and it breaks it down into kind of policy and planning, and then it tells you these are the documents you actually need. I think the biggest thing a lot of builders, when we kind of talk to them about their health and safety is knowing what documents they actually have to use at what stage of the project. So if I just kind of scroll along there, under the kind of do, obviously risk profiling, these are the risk assessments, organisation, site induction, health on site report, accident reporting, young persons on site. These are all the documents that you can then access under here. And then obviously implementation, we've actually in there got our kind of permits and stuff in there as well. Under the kind of check, scaffolding inspections, excavation inspections, plant inspections, site auditing, it needs to be carried out. And obviously investigating incidents. If you have an accident, we have a record that you can then produce for the accident, also an accident reports. And then finally, under the kind of acts, site inspections, checklists, site audits, any kind of breach of health and safety procedures, and obviously the HSG 65 has a document in there as well for your Toolbox Talks. So within the premium edition, you do get these kind of different kind of views, just so you know exactly what documentation you actually need at what stage, and this can all be kind of accessed under the kind of plan, do, check, act approach, which the health and safety executive is really kind of pushing at the moment. Okay. Now all these documents can be found in these tabs running across the top. So if you don't have the premium edition, it's just a plus edition, you just won't have that view, but you'll be able to access all these kind of documents along these kind of toolbars at the top. So as I said, the project details is the first one. The second one along is going to be a health and safety policy. So if you don't have a policy already, there is one built into the software. This kind of stipulates the kind of 4 different sections. Section 1 being the introduction. Section, you can actually expand this as well, by the way. Just grab that and pull it across. So obviously, Section B, health and safety policy statement. Section B, responsibilities and duties. And Part C, which is arrangements for the health and safety. So if you click on the Part B, that will kind of take you down to Part B. Within Part B, you've actually got a nice little kind of family tree of who's who. You can click on to edit that, and you can make any kind of changes and adaptations to that family tree as well. So you can kind of give a profile of who's who, who's the contracts manager. If I right click on there, or even kind of go into the contracts manager section there, I can even kind of put the contracts manager's name. Let me just put my name in there. So that's now the contracts manager. I can then go to the site manager, and I'll put the Jim Davis for some reason. We'll put that in there. So we can then kind of tell the software what the overall kind of family tree. If I want to put a co-worker next to the contracts manager, I can actually add new members to that. I can put the new members role, and then I can put the responsibilities down on this list as well here. Obviously, all my employees under here, I'll add the kind of a co-worker to there, and under there, I can also add subordinates. So I can really kind of build up the family tree, who's who, what responsibilities they actually have on the project. Okay. So that's it now mapped onto the health and safety policy. Part A is really just kind of looking at the policy section, outlines the content, obviously general policy statement, and again, any of these policy statements can be kind of edited. They can be added to. You can type in here whatever you like, and then kind of save, so you can overwrite this policy. If you want it to make, if you want to kind of align it with your own maybe kind of policy, you can do. Well, again, it kind of just stipulates the company's duties to observe the requirements of the Health and Safety at Work Act 1974, all the way down to provide satisfactory level of funding, human resources, time to commit to improving health and safety at time. So that is your kind of overall kind of the duties. All right. Chain of responsibility. The health and safety, the safety director's duties, the contracts manager's duties, the duties of the site manager and foreman, down to all operatives. Okay, so anybody obviously kind of operating on site. Protection of young persons. A young person is someone who is actually under the age of 18, and again, making sure that they're certainly kind of managed, supervised properly, and obviously they do have their own risk assessment as well as kind of toolbox talks, which I'll just come to in just a second. So the policy is quite robust. It has been kind of put together in accordance with the regs that you'll kind of come across. All right. Now, if you want to obviously kind of export that policy and print it off, all you have to do is just export that document. And what that will actually do is actually save it back to our folder. And then I can actually export that into that folder. And when you do export it, it will then open up your Explorer. It should do. And then that will then kind of go back to the file and show you that this is now being kind of uploaded into OneDrive, and that's your health and safety policy, and it's actually saved as a PDF now. So I can either print that off or send it to anybody else who I need to. So again, it is an obligation to have your kind of health and safety policy in there. Pre-construction. So again, there is going to be kind of information that you will have to fill out here. And this is all the case with the documentation, just to make sure that all the sections are filled in. Project description, including the client brief, any particular kind of key dates. All right. Proposed use of the structure, existing records and plans, client's brief, client considerations and management requirements, communications and liaison between client and others. Obviously, your site security, welfare provisions, site transport arrangements and vehicle movement restrictions, fire precautions. This will have to be all kind of filled out just on your kind of pre-construction information. You have information up here anyway to kind of read. Again, if you do hover over any of these tabs, it does give you a kind of a bit of an instruction and a bit of a breakdown. But obviously, if you are a little bit kind of stuck, you can go back to the HSE's kind of website and have a look at what the requirements are for your pre-construction. But obviously, kind of environmental restrictions, significant design and construction hazards, and obviously the health and safety file itself is down here, and how that needs to be kind of laid out and what needs to be included. So risk assessments. So under the risk assessments tab, we were obviously kind of doing a particular project based on the import from Estimator Express. So what this software has actually done is actually produced or given me a list of unpublished risk assessments at this stage. Now you'll see here on the right hand side, you do have a little kind of preview of what it's going to look like. But I mean, obviously, if we're digging or doing an excavation, probably if I go down to where is it? Let me just do it by alphabetical. Where is it? Excavations. So, got an excavations and also an excavator risk assessment. So I'm just going to double click on the excavations risk assessment. So again, all these risk assessments are actually filled out for you. We're only looking at one particular activity on this risk assessment. Let's make that a little bit bigger. So obviously the overall hazard is going to be the excavation itself. The overall risk being collapse of an unsupported excavation, falling into an unfenced excavation, possibly being struck by an excavator. These kind of risks do kind of carry quite a weight. The way the software calculates the 36 is obviously from 1 to 7, 7 being continuous, 1 being highly unlikely. We're saying this is going to be a 6, where it could be a regular occurrence, and obviously the outcome could go from being a 1, which is trivial, all the way up to a 7, which could be result in multiple fatalities, 2+ persons. Number 6 is probably up to around about 1 person, 5 is a major injury, and obviously 2 is a minor. So we're actually scoring this 6 out of 6, which is actually giving us a high score of 36. Now that's obviously it's highlighted as red, being dangerous. Now obviously if you put these control measures in place, and the control measures as such for the excavation is obviously ladder access to be in an unsupported part of the excavation, warning signs, materials to be stockpiled a suitable distance clear of the edge of the excavation itself, wheel stops to be used, prop ladder, inspection at commencement of shift by a competent person, head protection being worn by all operatives. So again, these kind of control measures, if they're in place, then obviously your risk then gets reduced, being highly unlikely and being a very kind of trivial, obviously if this is being kind of carried out by all operatives on site. There's a couple of comments there as well. Maybe some additional risk assessments that you may need. Risk assessment for temporary works. Risk assessment 107, which is falls, number 67, which is ladders, and number 35, which is working in a confined space work. Services, cutting into underground electricity cables, contact with services, i.e. electric, gas, and obviously working on contaminated grounds. So a detailed survey and method statement will be required to control works in contaminated ground. So that's probably where that's going to prompt you if you have got contaminants or working on contaminated grounds. Would spring you to creating a method statement, which again the software does produce as well. All right. If you do need to kind of add any additional kind of activities to the excavations risk assessment, then you can just add that, and you can put in your new hazard, your new risk, and you can kind of score it as you kind of see it. All right. But we're not doing that one, so I'm just going to delete that one out. If you are doing a method statement, you can then click on that section and do the method statement. But if we're also working with excavators, so again, there's going to be a risk assessment here, working with the actual plant. So risk is machine overturning, contact with obstructions, and then again, making sure that any plant ops and stuff are complying with the risk assessment just on here. Okay. So if you want to use those 2 risk assessments, all you have to do is you can highlight both of them, click export, and then what that's now going to do is actually take those 2 risk assessments, and it's now going to kind of pop it into your folder, ready to be printed off, ready to be used by anybody that needs to deal with those ones. You'll also see here, once we publish, it just does tell you that things have been published, and you can actually filter by the kind of published column, so you can actually see the ones that you've used. Other ones as well that are quite important, especially in today's kind of environment, working obviously with COVID on site. So I'm going to open up that one. Again, this was an update we made to the software probably some point last year when we ended up having the guidance. Now you'll see here we've actually got 13 different activities, so it's quite a meaty risk assessment really. The first one kind of deals with working with other site ops or meeting clients. So obviously it talks about the spread of COVID, falling ill, about hand washing, obviously social distancing, taking steps to review work schedules, conducting site meetings. So yeah, the advice, particularly from Gov, the HSE, is quite a bit to comply with regards to that. Obviously, if we put these control measures in place, then the risk is obviously reduced. Activity 2 deals with working on site or in the office. Obviously, looking at persons who show symptoms of COVID and what to do. Obviously, activity number 3 is work on properties of vulnerable groups, work on properties of individuals with COVID, undertaking emergency repairs in close proximity to others where it's not possible. So yeah, there's a lot of certainly activities on that particular risk assessment, and the same for any kind of office work while you're in the office. That's got around about kind of 8 activities, all talking about travel, etc. The big thing is kind of working from home, which we've all been doing, especially ourselves, for the last year. So whatever ones you need, again, I can highlight those 2. I can publish those by exporting them, and they will get exported into my folder. So you make sure that everybody who's on site or coming into the office have all read and understood the COVID risk assessment. Block and brickwork, again, will kind of carry its own kind of risks. Manual handling, injuries, damage to skin, dust in the eyes, exposure to silica dust, etc., falls from height. Again, the control measures in place, making sure you're kind of wearing goggles when cutting or splitting blocks. Okay, again, all these risk assessments relate to the project that we were having a look at. If the risk assessment isn't actually in here, then you can kind of create a new one, and you can create a new one from scratch. Okay, it assigns its own number. You can obviously kind of put in location, who's at risk, etc. Put in your hazard, put your control measures in place. So you can produce those. Or from the library, we haven't actually added them all in here, but obviously if we're kind of using mobile lighting towers, maybe it just hasn't added that one, so we can select that one. Obviously, if you're doing any kind of demolition work, we can now add those 2 as new risk assessments in this particular project. Okay. So all this has been filled in for you. Same for your kind of cost assessments. So working with cements, ready mix concrete. So if I just double click on that one. So the substance, ready mix concrete, it can come from various suppliers. You can put your own kind of manufacturer details in there with a phone number. So if anybody gets exposed to it or at risk with it, this particular document will carry phone numbers for emergencies. How you actually apply it, so it's applied by hand, indoor application, machine application, outdoor application. Any kind of hazardous substances, you can then kind of add different chemical compounds to that if you need to. All right, so if the substances has got its own kind of a chemical in there, you can actually add it. All right. Who's at risk? Obviously, kind of concreting ops, members of the public, tries to be kind of restricted. What are the overall hazards? Exposure, civil engineering contracts, irritant to skin, eyes, allergic contact, dermatitis, chemical burn, skin ulceration, dust inhalation when cutting hard concrete. PPE, things to wear, obviously kind of footwear, gloves, waterproofs, full body with sleeves over gloves and trouser legs over boots, protection of the eyes, obviously masks, when obviously kind of cutting. It can be an irritant, low risk when used in accordance with instructions. So obviously kind of non-flammable, non-explosive. How do you store that? So obviously storage, handling, transportation, waste disposable, any kind of first aid that you need to consider. Wash with cold water immediately. Obviously if it gets into the eyes, clean with the water for at least 50 minutes, but then kind of seek medical advice. Obviously if it's all been kind of inhaled, remove to fresh air, etc. Or obviously it's been ingested, how to seek medical advice on those grounds. So again, if you're kind of working with the ready-mix concrete, you can just export that out, and then again that will be exported into the file, and that will then kind of sit in there for the actual file. All right. Again, you can probably see here on this particular project, I mean, we're kind of running into over 200 cost assessments the software actually contains. And there's going to be ones that are kind of branded that you'll probably kind of come across: Gyprock, Blue Circle Portland Cement, Marley kind of the products. So if you do kind of click on those, they should actually have phone numbers and contact details if you're actually using their kind of products anyway within the software. Takes us on to kind of method statements. Now obviously not every single project requires a method statement, but if you're kind of working on unforeseen, unplanned, or very kind of specialist activities, so he kind of mentions contaminated grounds, which are not really kind of covered by the relevant risk assessments. So method statements are very site specific, content of which reflects the findings of the relevant risk assessments undertaken for this project. So you can kind of create your own brand new method statement. That's how the HSE would probably advise. If you need to create one, create an absolutely brand new one. But obviously, a lot of our users don't really know how to kind of go about creating one. So we have made a kind of a template you can edit, or you can actually add a couple of examples we've got. So you can actually add those and have a look at how that's all kind of then kind of laid out. So if you're obviously kind of working at a confined space, just by kind of double clicking on that, this will kind of give you a kind of a breakdown of the what needs to kind of go into each kind of section. You can copy that, overwrite it if you want to. Obviously on the left hand side you can kind of skip to these kind of sections: storage of materials, etc., hazards identified. So if you're working in a confined space, these are already the kind of hazards that we have identified, and this can then be kind of used as a kind of a checklist. You can also upload your own images to the method statement, and that could all then be kind of mapped on there, or you can just drop them in. All right, but you can create method statements from within the software, or you just use one of the examples and then kind of copy that. Or the right hand side will kind of show you how it's going to look anyway once it's all been kind of printed off. All right. So that one there, for example, demolition of a brick built structure with asbestos cement sheets. And again, that will then kind of show you whose people competencies are, supervisors, and what the overall kind of risks are. Okay. Construction phase plan. So we did kind of say at the top of the session, construction phase plan sets out the arrangements for securing the health and safety of everyone carrying out the project and others who may be affected. So if you're undertaking any kind of small scale routine work such as installing a kitchen, bathroom, or replacing windows, you could kind of get away with the simple construction phase plan before the actual work is actually kind of carried out, really. The simple construction phase plan can be found under your management documents, and the simple construction phase plan is, where is it? I believe it's down here. There it is there. So that document there is a nice kind of simple kind of 2-page simple construction phase plan, especially if you're, as we said, maybe kind of just doing like a kitchen. But obviously on this particular job, it's a lot bigger. So again, these areas need to be kind of filled out. You'll also notice as well, when we kind of change the pre-construction information and the health and safety policy, that's actually kind of fed into the construction phase plan. It's already kind of changed the overall kind of management structure. So some information, when you do kind of fill it on previous tabs, like the key dates, etc., will be kind of fed into here. So you're not having to kind of duplicate the work every single time. Okay. So again, if you put the existing traffic system under your kind of pre-construction, it will feed into your construction phase plan down here. All right. Toolbox Talks. So making sure that very kind of nice short presentations on very kind of like single kind of subjects. So again, you can kind of print these off. So let me just do them by if you click on that little titles tab, it does do it by alphabetical. So we were talking about COVID. So I'm going to just open up the COVID-19 Toolbox Talk. So again, it kind of lays out what the talk is about, why we're having it, any kind of prep, etc. Obviously, if you're having this kind of discussion about COVID, make sure you choose a suitable location with minimal distraction, and obviously kind of outdoors in an open space at least kind of 2 meters away from each other. So complying with the risk assessment on COVID, making sure that you're socially distancing while you're even having this kind of discussion. So it goes through like traveling to work. Obviously, travel alone using your own kind of transport, van or bicycle. Avoid kind of public transport, etc. Whilst on site, make sure you're kind of washing your hands as you get on site for at least 20 seconds, and then frequently throughout the course of the day, etc. So again, you could be having these kind of discussions with your team about kind of COVID or any other subject really. That's what these kind of toolbox talks are for. If you're again doing kind of excavations, there'll be a toolbox talk that kind of covers about kind of excavation. So making sure that people are very much aware before digging commences. Check for any kind of services, water, gas, and electric. Check the pre-construction information. Check the construction phase plan for where the services are and how they're being kind of highlighted. But yeah, any kind of questions you may get kind of thrown at the end, and you can kind of finish off with a bit of a statement. Obviously, when people are kind of working down excavations, a cubic meter of earth can weigh at least 1.5 tons. So if you get it wrong, bit of a kind of a play on words there, especially if you're working down an excavation, it could be grave. So again, if you need to kind of export these or even just preview them, you can do. You don't necessarily have to create a PDF. You can create any other kind of Word document or any other kind of document style. I guess with a PDF, they're quite easy to manage. They can't be manipulated. They're kind of a bit more kind of locked down, and that's your kind of toolbox talk there. And again, you can just open these up as PDFs, print them off, and then obviously that's how it's going to look when you get it kind of printed off. Now, anybody obviously kind of attending Toolbox Talks, you need to kind of make a note of who's attended, what people's kind of training records are. So under the management documents, you'll actually find these other kind of documents that is going to be a requirement on site. Obviously, if you are doing Toolbox Talks, there'll be a Toolbox Talks register. So what the overall kind of Toolbox Talk is, what the topic is, date of the course, name of the trainer, company, signature. So you can kind of get people's sign off that they've attended these events. And you can also have your own kind of Toolbox Talks kind of training record as well. So again, all this can be kind of exported off, and again, that can make up your folder and your file, and all your documentation can then be kind of produced and accessible in here. But also on your kind of management documents, people attending site, making sure that people are registering when they're coming onto site. And again, it's one of the biggest things that the HSE are really kind of clamping down on. If they walk in on site and people haven't been registered and they're just kind of meandering around, they haven't been inducted, they will find fault. With the HSE, I don't know if anybody's particularly aware, but you find it on fee for intervention. I might do it under FFI. Let's have a look. So anybody who's kind of dealt with the HSE before, the HSE are actually now kind of self-funded. So it's not, I wouldn't say it's in their best interest, but they will find fault if there is one. And the actual fee for intervention and how much that's going to take to be put right and corrected, the actual HSE will actually charge £160 an hour until it's actually corrected. So the fee will include the cost covering the time of the entire original visit. The total amount recovered will be based on the amount of time it takes the HSE to identify the breach and help you put things right, including associated office work, multiplied by the hourly rate. So you may include the inspector's time at your business, preparing reports, getting specialist advice, talking to you after the visit, talking to your workers. The fee can vary depending on how long the visit was, the time the inspector spent helping, and you have to pay these. As I said, they are kind of self-funded now, so it is in their kind of best interest to find fault, and until you kind of put it right. And it looks like it's actually gone up for 2021, 2022. It's actually increased from, was £157 to £160, the fee for intervention. So if you don't have things covered and these things are being found at fault and people aren't complying with the risk assessments and they're in breach of the health and safety guidance, then obviously they can get involved and they can charge you quite a lot of money until it's actually kind of put right. So your site induction, that kind of explains anybody coming in on site and who has registered and signed off that they're on site, the kind of overall kind of welcome, the kind of site details, access, site security, hours of work, restricted areas, etc., welfare, toilets, canteen, changing, obviously kind of accidents, how to report them, the attendance registrar, that needs to be kind of signed off. The fire plan needs to be explained. So your fire plan would be down here. Where is it? There's your fire plan. So again, another document that you can then produce. That's the kind of covering all your fire plan, storage of dangerous materials, obviously smoking on site. No smoking is permitted on site except in the designated kind of area of the welfare facility. So everybody needs to know how to raise the alarm, what the escape routes are, any kind of firefighting equipment, obviously all these signage, etc. If you're doing an audit on site, again, there's a document in here for your site audits. And again, that kind of acts as more of a kind of a checklist. I'll just kind of zoom in there a little bit so you can probably see some of the headings in there. So records, statistics, monitoring of accidents, asbestos, all these things need to be produced. Contractor questionnaire, health and safety policy. Any contractors coming in, they obviously have to make sure they've got their own health and safety policies, etc. Information to the subcontractors, training, risk assessments. Okay. If you're putting up scaffolds, inspection registrar, when it was last looked at, any matters given rise to risks, what the actions were taken, further action to be taken, signed off. Breach of health and safety procedures, again, anybody kind of breaches it needs to be kind of documented. Anybody even kind of using ladders, they need to be inspected. So yeah, HSG 65. Again, there is a kind of a document in there for that. Obviously, kind of people's training records can be added in there as well. So lots of obviously kind of information in here. So yeah, I guess the software, what it provides is all the documentation you're going to need to cover you from a legal standpoint on site. So if you have all this kind of covered, everything's kind of filled in, double checked, all the relevant information, then when the HSE do kind of come on and they say, right, I want to have a look at your registration, I want to see your PPE registrar, I want to see your inspection, excavation inspection notes, etc. When was the last one done? Has it been carried out? And obviously making sure you kind of got site rules as well as a fire plan in place as well. And that's what the software offers, really. as I said, there is a little bit kind of extra with the kind of view side of it. So if you want to have a look at your HSG 65 table view, we can actually see that we have published the policy. We haven't actually published the construction phase plan at this stage. All right. So again, you can go back into that and make sure it's then kind of published. All right. Cool. So hopefully that's given everyone a bit of a kind of an insight to the software and what's really kind of in here. If you don't really kind of know too much about what requirements and what documentation you do require, you can speak to our kind of dedicated kind of support team, and they will kind of advise and help. We do use our own kind of consultancy that does help us kind of put all this documentation together. Again, we can put you in touch with those guys if you need to. But really, the rest of it is kind of filling yourself up with knowledge, having a look at your responsibilities and duties, and all this information can be found on the HSE's website. So use them as a guide, use them as an advisory. They will kind of help. Make sure you kind of get it right. They're rather into prevention rather than kind of reactionary if things kind of go wrong. So certainly do kind of use them if and when you need to. So we're probably coming to the end of the hour. If anybody's got any particular questions, as I said, there is a little kind of question box at the bottom. So yeah, feel free to kind of do that. But anybody kind of looking at the software, as I said, we do have a couple of different versions. The premium has that kind of extra view. The plus, without it, you can do it on like an annual subscription if you need to. There is obviously a kind of a lifetime license option as well. Or if you want a little bit more kind of one-to-one time, we can get that booked in for you as well. All right. So I am going to kind of hang around for the next 5-10 minutes. So if anybody's got any questions. Okay, yeah, good question about the difference between the versions. So with the Plus edition, you basically have this kind of layout without this kind of very end tab called Views. So in the Premium edition, this will actually be active. Just with the that kind of activation, what you can do is you can have that kind of HSG 65 view in a slightly kind of different way. So rather than trying to work out from this top row what you need, what this does is kind of lays out your kind of plan, do, check, act approach. So under your kind of checks, investigating kind of reports, obviously that then kind of gives you the documentation just here. Again, you can export these from here and export them back. All right, so yeah, that does allow you to kind of do it from here. So it's just a slightly more condensed view with the HSG 65's approach to actually managing your project. So under the kind of do section, we can see the ones that we have published. And again, if I need to then kind of publish those, we can kind of export them back to our files. So if we do need that risk assessment, just needs to replace that. Looks like we've already done that one. And then that will kind of take the documents out of the software and put in there. So that's the you've got this kind of view here, which is more a kind of a list view, or you've got more the kind of table view that you can kind of skip along. And then again, this is kind of listing all the documents you'll actually need at these kind of stages. Okay, and then obviously your construction stage view as well. That's kind of looking at day 0, pre-construction, construction phase, and then your kind of review. So again, it just kind of lists the documents in a bit more of a orderly view rather than kind of going through these kind of tabs. If you only had the plus, you wouldn't have that. You just have to kind of access the documents from here. All right. I just find, I mean, if I was using the software, obviously I'm a bit biased, but it just kind of gives me a more of an easier kind of view on what I need when. So if we're at this kind of check kind of section once the project's underway, then again we can kind of click on those and then just export the actual document from here into our folder. So anybody accessing this kind of OneDrive can access these, and I can print them off from here as well if I want to, just using a kind of like a PDF reader. It seems a little bit more easier, really. So if there's no more questions, I'll let you guys get back to your day, and we'll definitely catch up and have a chat. All right. So thank you very much for your time. Really appreciate it, and I'm sure we'll chat very, very soon. All right. Thank you. Cheers. Bye bye.